Hey guys, so I just wanted to jump on here and give you an update as to what happened when I was in the Ukraine. And before I get started, I just wanted to thank the right parties who kind of got this thing going. So this wasn't a CFAN per se initiative 100%. It wasn't just CFAN. It wasn't just me going over there. By all means, it was actually a group of a ton of people. I served alongside of people from Asia, people from Europe, the Americas, North and South America. I mean, there was 100 people there, and they were all there for one reason: to tell people about Jesus. And really the big organization on the ground there that really was forefronting all of this was Awakening America and Ben Fitzgerald. And then we had Joe Turnbull, we had Dennis Articheski, Evelina. There was a lot of people who, Matthias I think was the first one on the ground, David Rodmel. There's a lot of people who went in there a week before I even got on the ground. And when I landed, let me tell you, I felt pretty nervous, more nervous than maybe I should, because I knew I was supposed to be there. The first day I was there, I'm driving a rental van and I wreck it per se. I scraped the whole side of it. It really bothered me more so than it should. And then that very next day we jumped across the border, and I have so many stories to tell you. I want to share at least one or two just to give you an idea of what it was like. But let me tell you, it was cold. The first day I was there, we went across the border, and I wasn't planning on going into Ukraine when I got on that airplane. But when I hit the ground, I realized that that was the only way that we were going to do what we came there to do, which was to tell people about Jesus. Because what we found is when people got across the border from Ukraine into Poland, they were actually a lot more at ease. It's almost as if they found their salvation, that being getting out of Ukraine. And so they weren't as open to hearing the gospel. And so we decided, or the people who were there, Joe and Dennis and people there in front of me, decided, let's go across the border. So Ben Fitzgerald really pushed it to get across the border, and Joe made it happen. And so that day that I got there, we went across the border. It took about 3 hours to get from Poland into Ukraine. And we had a trailer full of a lot of stuff. We had food, we had propane tanks and gas burners to warm things up, like coffee and soup. And we set up a tent along the line. And that first day I was there, I was completely overwhelmed. There were literally tens of thousands. There could have been 100,000 people. I don't really know, but tens of thousands of people waiting in line to get into Poland from Ukraine. And so we're about 300-400 meters inside Ukraine that day. We set up tents and we just started telling people about Jesus. But I actually was quite overwhelmed. Seeing all the people standing there, I was freezing. I couldn't even feel my hands and feet. I don't know if I'd ever been as cold as I was that day. And just seeing these kids, these women and children standing, they could have been standing for days. Some of them said they'd been traveling for 3, 4, 5 days to get to the border, outside, jumping from car to bus to walking miles and miles. And the line stretched several kilometers away from the border of people just standing outside. And that was just the people standing. And then you had the people in cars and trucks and vans and buses. And that line, at one point, it was said to have reached about 30 kilometers from that border crossing that we were at. And so what we did is we would set up, we would start handing out food and coffee, and then we would tell people about Jesus. Sometimes it would be one-on-one. Sometimes one of us would just preach a short, loving gospel that would just show people who Jesus really was. And the people were so responsive. We would have 50, 100 people raise their hand every time we preached the gospel, and they'd be standing outside for days, and you'd just see tears coming down their faces. We had little cards. I thought I had one around here, but it said, "Do not fear, I am with you, Jesus." And that was written in Ukrainian. And we would sometimes just hold up that card, and people would look at us and just start crying. And it was just heartbreaking to see the people would show us pictures of their homes and their apartment complexes that were just rubble. And they would tell us about people they knew who died. We saw husbands who had walked for miles with their family to drop them off at the border, only to get on a bus to go back to Kyiv or back to their city to enlist and to fight. And it was just so sad. But one of the great stories that I want to tell you right now is I met a man and a woman, and this man was bringing his wife. They didn't have any kids that I know of. He was bringing his wife to the border. And we started talking to him, and I said, "So where are you from?" And they said, "Kyiv." And I said, "So how long did it take you to get here?" And they said, "Well, we've been traveling for about 3 days. We had a car, we ran out of gas, we rode with someone, and we walked the past 8 hours to get to this point." And at that point, they were just so downtrodden. I just felt the burden that they were carrying. And I looked at the man and I said, "So you're not going into Poland, are you?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Can I ask you a question? It's not an easy question." And he said, yeah, you can ask. And I said, "Have you ever thought of what would happen to you or your wife if you wouldn't have made it this far? If maybe one of those missiles would have hit you, if it would have blown up the building while you were asleep and you wouldn't have escaped, what would have happened to you? Where would have you gone? What would have happened?" And they looked at each other and they looked back at me, and the wife looked at me and she said, "I don't know." And the husband said, "Yeah, I don't know." And I said, "What if I told you that I know how you can find out? I know how you can find out. I have the answer." And they're like, yes, I want to know. And so I told them the simple gospel. I told them how Jesus died on the cross for their sins, that all they have to do is call on his name and open their hearts and invite him in. I told them how he rose from the dead, how he's the Son of God, how he's God himself, and how he loves them, and he's been chasing after them all their lives. And that now was the time. Now was the time to know that they know that if they died, that it wouldn't be the end, but it would just be the beginning. And I shared the gospel with them, and they were so receptive. They were crying. I was crying. The Russian translator lady who was with me, they spoke English, but she was standing there beside me. She was crying. We were all crying. And I said, "Let's say a prayer. Will you say a prayer with me?" And they said, yes, we would love to say a prayer with you. And so I led them in the prayer of salvation. They both accepted Jesus in their heart. And then we were able to give them Bibles. And this was really special because they were going to be separated in just a few hours. They were like 400 meters from the border. This was the end of their journey. They knew that they may never see each other again. And so we gave them Bibles. And I felt the Holy Spirit say, "I need them to read the book of Mark." You know, the book of Mark talks about immediately. It says immediately more than any other book in the Bible. And I felt that they needed to know that the Lord can work immediately in their lives. And so we opened to the book of Mark. I still remember it was page 55 in that New Testament. And we opened it and we put a bookmark on it. And I said, "I think that you guys both need to read this." And they said, "We're going to read it tonight. We're going to call each other. We're going to read it together. And we're going to read this book every day until we see each other again." And that was just so special to me, special to them. A few hours later, they were up by our tent. I was able to give them a cup of warm soup and coffee, and they were totally different. Their countenance had changed. They actually looked like they had joy in their heart. It was amazing. And that's just one of, let me tell you, tens of thousands of stories that are still coming out of the Ukraine. Right now, we still have teams there. There's teams staying on the Ukrainian side of the border. There's teams staying on the Polish side of the border. We sent people to Romania, and I believe we're going to have people there soon. And these refugees, these Ukrainian, these Slavic people who for most of their life have been so hard, are so open to receiving the gospel. They're so open to hearing about Jesus. And that's why we went. That's why I went. That's why all the people who are there, that's why they went. And that's why your prayers are so appreciative. You know, this isn't for me a political thing. This isn't who's right and who's wrong. This is a spiritual thing. This is an eternal thing of people who are desperate for something, and they don't even know that it's Jesus. They don't even know until we tell them. And you should just see the difference on their faces. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you who gave to this mission as we went over there, who gave for Bibles. We've we raised money for like 300 Bibles. Let me tell you, there's been tens of thousands of Bibles given out by the people over there that are working in the same group that I am. And there's still people there. There's people going every day back because of what was set up in the week before I was there and the week I was there. There's going to be teams on the ground until there's no need for them to be there anymore. And so we just want to thank you. Thank you for giving. Thank you for praying. Let me tell you, it was very hard for me personally. It may not have been hard for everyone, but it was disconcerting every day waking up thinking, well, there could be a bomb. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We saw military vehicles passing by. We saw people, my team, not me personally, one night was there until late at night, and they saw people die right in front of them. They prayed for them to be resurrected to no avail. They saw people die. We saw people literally freezing. There was a day where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to move my toes. I mean, it was cold. But through all of it, Jesus was glorified, and it was one of the most beautiful trips that I'd ever been on. So I just want to thank you guys again. I love you. I look forward to whatever it is the Lord calls us as a family to do next. And I will talk to you guys all soon. Thank you. God bless you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.